On the panel, we have Ant, Dani, Dennis, and Shannon, and I'll let them introduce themselves with the first question. So the very first question, and just like always, if you have thoughts about this as we chat about it, feel free to write your comments in the chat area. But it's about scope creep. How do you avoid scope creep? Icky. So we're going to go ahead and start with Ant. Ant, could you kind of introduce yourself, your company, and let us know how you avoid scope creep?
Yeah, hey guys. As Patti said, my name's Ant, and my company is E-Learning Architect, based over here in London in the UK. I feel like a bit of a fraud being the first person to answer this question, because I think it was my question that I actually wanted to answer, because I'm probably somebody who's struggling with this at the moment. But maybe rather than answering the question, I'll explain my experience of where I've been going wrong with this year. So this is my first year working solo as a sort of e-learning consultant, and I think we've had a lot of conversations so far within the community about pricing, and I am pretty much 99% of the time now pricing based on a project rather than on an hourly or daily rate with my clients. So it's really in my interest to reduce the amount of time it takes me to build a course. Obviously, if you're pricing by the hour or by the day, you're not maybe as concerned about how much time you're taking, and if there's lots of reviews and lots of things being added into the course, sometimes that can be a benefit if you're being paid by the day or by the hour. But for me, I'm charging my clients a one-off fee for the project, and therefore it's really important that I reduce the amount of times people sort of come in and try and adjust the original agreed. And I really got stung by this earlier this year, where I agreed to create a project for a client, or an e-learning course for a client. They said they wanted it to be about 20 minutes. They kind of given me a rough idea about what was going in there, but I definitely hadn't created a storyboard, and we hadn't really gone through the details of how it was all going to work. And by the time I'd written a proposal for them and they'd agreed that proposal, when it actually came to building the course, they wanted quite a lot of technical functionality. So they wanted things like software simulations in the course, and we hadn't budgeted for that, or I hadn't budgeted for that at all. But from the client's perspective, they were just looking at it as, well, it's an e-learning course, this is what we want in it, and they didn't really obviously care how long it took me to do that. So that's kind of my experience, and I'd probably like to pass this over to the next person in the queue to maybe find out. I think Ezekiel and Judith's presentation is really relevant, because a review tool like this would be fantastic to help reduce scope creep, and not necessarily reduce scope creep, but to really streamline that review process, which is a big part of what can often happen when you're getting a project reviewed. It can go off in different directions and have lots of people sending it back and forth, and it takes longer than actually building the course itself. So Patti, I'll pass on to the next maybe take over and give some suggestions rather than asking the same question.
Awesome, thanks, Ant. Use your own question on you. I like it. Like how I work. I didn't even realize. Okay, so Dani wins. She's the next person here. Yep. And so if you'll just introduce yourself and your company, and just your experience with scope creep.
I'm Dani Watkins. I am in Colorado, and my business is Zenith Performance Solutions, or ZPS. I've spoken on this topic a little bit, and for us, what works is we've created a tool in Excel, nothing fancy, but we've sort of identified what are all the key things that could be included in an e-learning project, and then sort of itemizing those in a spreadsheet with lots of formulas and functions. That then, as I'm creating a proposal, I can go through and answer questions. For example, some of the questions that are in here, and again, this is sort of based on our business, but like simple questions like, in what format is the source material? Is it a face-to-face instructor-led? Does it have a corresponding PowerPoint? If there's a video recording, how long is that video? If it's a Word document, how many pages is that Word document? If it's an existing PowerPoint presentation, how many slides are in there? And then we've built formulas and functions on all of that feedback to kind of calculate how many hours we think it's going to develop that course. When I deliver a proposal to a client, they not only get a proposal that sort of itemizes those things, or overall the deliverables, but then they also get this spreadsheet. So for me, it makes the conversation really easy when all of a sudden they say, well, we want audio. And I go back to the spreadsheet and say, when we agreed on the proposal, audio wasn't included. I mean, it's sort of in black and white, and it helps them identify it. It just makes the conversation so much easier. And so, you know, it is a tool that continues to be refined. You know, new things we add to it. For example, translation. We hadn't done a lot of translation, and we got a project where we needed to do a lot of translation. So we added that line item to the tool, sort of had some calculations on what we thought it was going to take. And then after the project, went back and refined the tool so that the calculation was a little bit more realistic. I too tend to bid on a fixed rate. And part of that is I know in my head how many hours. I mean, I know what my billable hours is, and you do the math, and you know how many hours approximately you have. That also enables you to use contractors on a particular project that have different billable rates, and you still know sort of what is your the lowest or the highest you can go with a contractor, because you know what you're getting per hour. So for me, kind of starting to track that. So we go from proposal, give them the estimate, use our estimation tool, and then we do exactly what Christy said. We do a statement of work as well. And what we found is the estimation tool just really helps us be really clear with really granular changes to keep things in control. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Dani.
Sure.
I love that estimation tool. And there's a ton of really great chat in the comments about, you know, statements of work and out of scope sections. So tons of really great things.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on then to Dennis. Introduce yourself, your company, and how do you deal with scope creep?
Hi, I'm Dennis Hall. I'm the founder of learningtemplates.com. I also do have a web development company that I've had for many years, and it's called Products and Services Canada. It's a pretty crappy name. To address the scope creep issue, I just want to share a document on the screen for 1 second. For those of you who can see this, this is a project billing estimate, and I do also have a change order. Can everyone see this? The spreadsheet? Okay, thank you. So I also do have a change order, and to avoid scope creep to begin with, you've got to identify the scope. Okay, it's something that many people don't. They just kind of generally write a paragraph and say, here you go, here's what we're going to give you. But really what you need to do is you need to identify the deliverables, the dates they'll be delivered, the whole business. And what I do is I also start off a project identifying all the different roles of the people that would be involved, which include translation. I then also identify assumptions. Okay, so by having this type of form right off the bat, I'm being really clear as to what I'm delivering, when I'm delivering it, and what the cost would be. Now, I do have different clients that I might bill differently. So for example, in this spreadsheet, what I've done, I've got client 1, and if I have client 1 and I have a resource type assigned to something in there, then that resource type has a dollar value associated with their hourly rate. And whether I'm using myself as the actual resource or subcontracting it to someone, they're going to give me some value per hour, and they're going to give me an estimate on their time. So for example, in this case, this person might estimate 20 hours to do scoping of the project, just as an example. And their rate is $60 an hour based on the fact that it's client 1 who's being billed. Now, if it's client 2, that rate might change to $70 an hour. And if it's client 3, it might be different again. So I do give different clients different costing. And basically, it's just a matter of selecting the role of the person who's going to do whatever job. So I might have a graphic artist doing project management, and they might, because they're a graphic artist, they'll probably do 40 hours of project management because they don't know how to do it well, that type of thing. I might give a different price or whatever on that. And then it basically just adds up. Then in the translation side, that's again another set of people, whether they're internal, external, and so on. So that deals with the project scope and the deliverables and the dates that I'm delivering, etc. When it comes to deliverables, I'm identifying, I will deliver you a instructor. If it's, let's say it's an instructor-led course, I will deliver you an instructor's PowerPoint. I will deliver you students' PowerPoints or student CDs or whatever it be. I will deliver you manuals. I will, is it job aids? What's the type of project being done? And I do have different project types that I also have in here. So, for example, blended learning, distance learning, etc., self-study, even job aids are in here. So I might have a job aid, and based on that, I've got some information that I might do. So that deals with the initial scope, and from that comes scope creep. So scope creep, I've basically got the same thing, except I've got an additional costs section in here, and the reason for the additional costs. If the scope creep is my fault, then that cost is absorbed, and it becomes pretty clear that it's my fault based on this. If it's not my fault, then I'll address it with the customer, and there's going to be some play. There's going to be a little bit of give and take in cases like that. If I want to keep their business, I'll play their game a bit, and I'll be as nice as I can about getting it all done. So that's all I wanted to say about that, and that's it.
Oh, thank you so much, Dennis. That's very helpful. It looks like you and Dani both have those the estimation proposals. That's incredible. And of course, people are asking about these templates. If anybody is willing to share templates that they have, if you could put them in Slack, that would be incredible. And we can just have a growing list of things that we can kind of adapt and use. That would be great. And then on to Shannon, last but not least, if you introduce yourself and your company and scope creep.
Hi, Patti. Shannon Connor. My company is Kick Learning, K-I-C-K. No reason for the name except it was short, easy to say, easy to spell, kind of had oomph behind it. I take a little bit different approach, I think, and I've never had a problem with scope creep. Might work for everybody, might not. I think everybody has something that works for them. What I've learned over my years is I never send pricing to a client. I call them, share my screen, walk through it with them, bring them into the pricing process, and we come up with pricing together. And there are many studies out there that, one I'm thinking about is the Chapman Alliance study. There's several out there that break learning, let's talk about e-learning, for example, into levels. And the real basic thing is it's low, medium, or high, right? Low is a page turner. You take a PowerPoint, put a wrapper around it, SCORM compliant, that's easy. Medium, now you're getting into like a level 2. You've got some audio in there, you're sourcing images, and then you might get up into higher, which is more in-depth software simulations. I share these studies with the client. We work together to identify where we agree that the project's going to be, low, medium, or high. It's never low, I can tell you that much. It's usually in that medium range, sometimes high. And we just have a conversation and say, okay, this is what we're putting in the contract. We're doing this medium level or average level e-learning. This is what's in it. If it goes into this next level, then we need to do a change order. And that's what goes into the contract that we have with them. And I send a contract, and it has pieces of what everybody else has mentioned as well. It's got general assumptions. The assumptions are, hey, there's only going to be this many review cycles, 1 storyboard, 1 alpha, 1 beta, and then that's it. Whether it's going to contain audio or not, that you've already done your needs analysis, you agree this is what we're doing. In the contract also, there's a line item that says we're consolidating. You need to consolidate reviewers' comments on your side and bring to us clear, actionable requests for what we need to do. I've not once ever had an issue with pricing because the client has felt that they've been part of the conversation and the process. They help me come up with the pricing. They can't argue with it. They're partly responsible. Works every time. So that might be an approach you might want to consider.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. That is very, very helpful, involving them and actually having a conversation and walking them through it. I love that. Okay, so we've got time for another question. We'll move on to the next one, which is, how do you know if your training effort was successful? And I know this one's like a can of worms, so we're not expecting like a huge, lengthy explanation, but have you ever been involved in this piece with the client where you're actually looking at the success of the project as a whole? Did it increase retention? Did it increase sales? Anything like that? And if not, that's fine, but we'll go ahead and start with Dani. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity. You don't always get to, a lot of times you create the learning and then you move on and you don't get necessarily the feedback because you've already moved on to the next project, so is the client. And I think I've had the opportunity to do some level 2, level 3 evaluations with a couple of long-term clients, and that's really fun. We usually do a pilot, so as part of our development process, we usually pilot it, and then, again, in the statement of work, we identify how many rounds of reviews they get, because you always have that client that wants to continue to tweak this and tweak that and tweak this, and so we are really clear about how many review cycles they get, and then we offer a pilot if they choose. I will say most clients don't want to do it because they wanted it done yesterday, and so they don't necessarily take advantage of that, but when we have done it, it's great feedback for us. We go back and tweak what needs to be tweaked. And then most of our projects are long-term in terms of we don't just create one piece of e-learning and we're gone. We usually have multiple projects with that client. So we take what we've learned and then apply it to the next project potentially. But I do think in our industry, that's an area that lacks, is getting that feedback. In the earlier conversation around review tools, we use Review My eLearning, and I think that can help gather feedback from a wide variety of people in a pilot or in a beta with users. The other thing we've done at a real estate client is we actually stood over their shoulders. If you've worked in the real estate industry, sometimes just like turning on their computer is a challenge. And so we built some content, and then we actually just stood over their shoulder and watched them access it. And that was really, really helpful for us because, simple, like just using a left click and a right click was sometimes difficult. So that was hugely important as we started that project and did our first piece for them. So did that answer?
Awesome.
Did I address that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea. So, just doing pilots, my goodness, the amount of information that you find, like you said, even just watching people click through.
And you're like, why did they click there? I wouldn't have clicked there. Yeah, it's good. Good stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so on to Dennis. How do you know if your training effort was successful, or have you ever been involved in that process with clients?
So for classroom training, always piloting. That's usually where we'll deal with any revisions required, and then the final pilot would be the course introduction, which typically I or someone else, representing me is going to attend as well. So for that part, that becomes kind of the review process as well as the pilot, and it becomes a follow-up because we get to look at the data, the resulting data. Regarding e-learning, for the review process, typically I'm going to use a review platform. I have my own review platform, but there's also tools that exist out there that are by the Adobes and the Trivantises. They have their own review platforms, which you actually get access to. In the case of Trivantis, for example, you can get access to their review platform, which is tied to their course mill LMS. Anyhow, moving forward with that though, most times in e-learning, beyond the final review, I typically don't get much feedback from anyone. It's not uncommon to just let it go, and but when I have gotten feedback, usually I'll follow up about a month or 2 months after I've given them the product, and just ask, I'll usually ask some fairly specific questions. Have you seen better productivity? Have you seen the mistakes not happening? Depending on what the course was about, what was the course trying to fix? So in the case of e-learning, I'll usually follow up 2 to 3 months actually after the fact to get some real honest stuff. At the end of classroom training, we've all got the smiley sheets. I don't pay attention to smiley sheets. They're all going to say, yay, I love the instructor, I love the course. They're all going to say that because the people are always in fear that you'll beat them up if they don't, right? So again, classroom training, the realistic thing is contact the customer about 3 months later and ask some specific questions. Go through what you designed the course to fix and ask questions about the fix. Did this improve productivity? Did this increase safety? Are there less incidents occurring in your ticketing system because we gave the course? And that would be 3 months later. And that's all I've got to say on that.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, yeah, I like that. Following up, a few months after, just to see if it actually did what you said that it would do. Okay, Shannon, training effort successful?
Yeah, you always get the typical smile sheets. It's right. It's nice for your ego every once in a while to see that, but don't pay too much attention to it. Look, level 4 evaluation's the holy grail, right? I know somebody who has seen that and done it. It's great. I see Dani has. That's wonderful. I'd like to hear about that. Typically to get level 3 feedback, for example, one of our big clients, which is a big automotive dealer, they have their sales managers report back at periodic months, 3 months, 6 months, to try to tie direct performance from learning to their sales people's performance, for example. But to me also, repeat business when they come back to you and ask for additional courses of the same ilk and say, oh, it was fantastic, or this is what we've seen improved. That's also a big indicator as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon. And then last but not least, Ant, training effort successful.
Yeah, I was going to just quickly share my screen actually. Basically, I haven't had any experience of going right through to level 4 yet, but obviously, as everyone's explained, I think that's really important, because at the end of the day, why are we designing these e-learning courses? There's no point in doing it unless we're doing it to solve a problem or to raise awareness or change behaviour. And I was just going to quickly share something that I've been working on, which might be of interest. I was chatting about, I think I was chatting to Tammy about this within the Slack group. But I've recently created this little, I've created 2 little online forms. Can you see my screen, guys? Yeah, cool. Yes. It's just a series of questions. Why are you delivering this e-learning course? And the client just types their answer in here. How will you know whether the course is successful?
We see your inbox.
Yep. Yeah, we see your Evernote inbox.
Yeah.
Now we see e-learning architect logo.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Is that better?
Yes. Why are you delivering this e-learning course? What outcome are you looking to achieve?
So it's just an online form basically, and you just type in the boxes. So the questions are already pre-set out for the clients. So I'll just send them the URL, and then they fill in this information. And this stage here, actually, I've created this to send out to them before I create the proposal. So it's not only to find out why we're creating the e-learning course, it's also to try and get the client to start thinking about the value of the course. So what actually, is there any kind of financial association with why you're creating this course, and try and get them thinking about the value that I'm going to be delivering with this e-learning course. So it's just 3 or 4 questions. So we can see things like what specific numbers will be affected if this best case scenario is achieved. So, for example, if every single person that's on this sales training course doubles their sales figures, is that your best case scenario? And then I've got another form which does the same kind of thing, but I haven't used this yet. I'm still waiting for sort of 3 or 6 months to elapse. But once 3 months has elapsed after maybe the course has the course has gone live with their participants, I can send this one out. I mean, this one isn't great. This is more of a feedback from customers. So, did you enjoy working with me? But the same concept I could obviously use, saying things like, was the course successful? Did you, and I can relate that back to the initial questions or the initial feedback that they provided in that very first series of question and answers. So for me, it's a case of trying to tie the success, tie that back to what they originally asked for before we even started discussing this course, and sort of close that loop. But I'm still too early in my journey to sort of suggest that that's been successful yet. So I'm talking about a kind of an ideal scenario.
And you use Typeform to create this, is that right?
I was chatting to Tammy the other day, and you can see down here, I use a little piece of software called Typeform. I started off doing it in Wufoo, which you might be familiar with. It's a bit like SurveyMonkey, but this is really cool, this Typeform. It's free if you don't mind having the Typeform branding on there. It's got really good analytics, so you can see what people are responding to if you've got a lot of people filling in the forms. And the best thing about it looks really cool on mobile phones, so you can just send a link, and it's all HTML5 compatible. So I thought it was a lot prettier than some of the other forms that you see out there.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that, Ant.
I've shared the link. So
that'd be great. And I know we're out of time now, you guys, but make sure and join us on Slack if you've not been on it. We have conversations throughout the week. We actually are going to be meeting. We're going to take a couple weeks off, and then we're going to be meeting on January 7th. So I just put in the chat a little, you could post this on LinkedIn or something. It's like just text that you could post, and it has a registration link. For all of you that are already on the phone, you don't need to register. I'm going to just send you an invite, an Outlook invite, so you can just add it to your calendar. But for other people, it's nice because we have a registration link. If they've not come before, then it gives them all the information, the meeting URL and things like that they would need. So we will see you in a couple of weeks, January 7th, with Vicki Kunkel is going to talk to us about business models for instructional designers. So I'm very excited for that one. And thanks to the presenters today and everyone on the panel. Have a wonderful week and very happy holiday.
Take care. Bye-bye. Have a happy holiday.
Bye.